policy on capturing and recording meetings of decision-making bodies. And next, I'll turn it over to Chair Mahaney Guru to call the meeting to order and review the orders of the day.
Okay, thank you. So I call the meeting to order, and Danica is going to take roll. You're on mute, Danica.
I am. I just noticed that. Anne has asked me to switch the view, so I will be switching the view right now. Sorry about that, everyone. Please let me know if you can see the full screen slideshow.
That looks good. Thanks, Danica.
Okay.
So we'll move on to roll.
Absolutely. Okay. Let us call the roll. All right. So Chair Mahaney Guruhu.
I'm here.
Great. Vice Chair Magana.
Present.
Fantastic. Commissioner Allen is going to be absent, as she let me know that earlier today. Then Commissioner Jolly. Oh no, she is going to be absent. Commissioner Allen, are you present with us? No, so I'm going to list her as not being present. Commissioner Malillo.
Present.
Great. Commissioner Mendoza.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Rivers.
I'm present.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Thorson.
I'm present.
Thank you. Commissioner Trudell.
Present.
Great. Commissioner Snyder. Absent. Commissioner Uri Chu. Looks to be absent. All right. So it looks as though we still have only 7 people present, which is not necessarily, it's not a quorum. But
Vera is here.
oh, okay. Great.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
So we have quorum now, yeah?
I believe so.
Excellent.
That's exactly why I said I'm here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for saying that.
Great. Any more on the roll, Danica? Are we good?
That is everyone I have on the roll.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to move to, I think we're moving to a motion to approve the agenda. So I'm going to ask a favor first, though. Because it's hard to see or know who's doing the firsts and the seconds, for Danica's sake, can you say, if you're going to go do a first or a second, can you say your commissioner name so she gets it? Would that be okay with everyone?
I would definitely really appreciate that, especially because I'm sharing my screen, which means I really can't see everyone. So I would love to know who motions, who seconds, and we can go from there.
Great. So I need a first for the approval of the agenda.
Commissioner Trudell, I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second?
I can second, Commissioner Malillo.
Thank you. And is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Are we doing a aye, yay, nay vote, or are we doing it by everybody are we calling the vote?
And we'll do just a voice vote. And then if there are any, if there's any dissent or people that abstain, then we'll note those names and just kind of take the difference as those accepting the motion.
All right, all those in favor of accepting the agenda, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody is abstaining? All right, we have the vote.
Great
Next,
job.
thank you. Consent calendar. We are moving to include the consent calendar, the approval of the August meeting minutes. I'm requesting a first call for a motion.
Commissioner Trudell, I'll make the motion again.
Thank you, sir. And a second?
I'll second, Commissioner Thorson.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, let's do a verbal vote. All those to approve the consent calendar, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? All right, let's keep moving. It looks like we are at the public record slide. And at this point, at the point we've got the notes, there was nothing on file for public record. Is there anything new, or is that still the same?
There's nothing in the public record.
Okay, we'll keep moving. For open forum, are there any speakers that wish to comment on an item? If you do, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon to speak for 2 minutes. Is there anyone who'd like to address the commission?
For the commission to know, we have 3 members of the public that are attending this meeting. To date, or at this point, no one has raised their hand, but you do have members of the public in attendance.
Well, welcome. Okay, looks like we have no one wishing to address the commission. Slide 7, we'll move to the introduction of our discussion items, and the first one being our budget overview. We will have Andrea, I think, yeah?
Yes.
Correct.
All right. You are up.
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I know we just had a budget update in August. The August update covered more of kind of the impacts of COVID and how we, what made up our fiscal year 2021 budget. And so this budget update is going to be a little bit more focused on how we finished 1920 and some of the savings that were kind of recognized and why, and then a little bit more information about moving forward as we'll begin the budget process very quickly. Next slide, please. So, excuse me. So fiscal year 1920, our operating expenses ended at 46.6 million. So it's important to note that our budget was 48.9 million. About 880,000 of that was personal services savings, directly related to employees in the library department that contributed to either EOC, Emergency Operations Center, or disaster service work that was eligible for CARES Act funding. And so we, from our department perspective, have some savings, but overall, those expenses were moved over to be funded through CARES Act. And then it's important to note for our capital expenses, we only had 9 million in comparison to our budget of 23.3 million. And so a portion of that is in fact our bond funds that we moved over to this year that we do have planned out to be spent on some projects, including Biblioteca, as well as some other projects. And then there was also the impact of COVID, which has delayed some of our projects and will be planned either this year or in the coming years. So although there are savings, there's on one side, from the operating side, our general fund savings doesn't necessarily come back to us. It does go to the city, which is great and helps the city overall. Our library parcel tax savings do come back, as that is 100% to be spent on library services. And so those just roll into our fund balance and will be able to be used in future years. So that's just a little bit about our year-end actuals in comparison to the budget, and a little bit about the savings that were recognized, and some being used for future capital expenses, and then as well as the library tax, parcel tax to be used for the future, and then the general fund savings rolling back into the general fund to support all citywide activities. So next slide, please. So a little bit about the actual COVID staffing impacts in 1920. So our budgeted FTE in 1920 was 373.47. So based on actual filled positions, that was 551 people. And so some of our positions are part-time, and so they'll equate to more, 3 people could equate to 1 FTE. Our 1920 furloughed staff, in the last meeting, we talked about how in May 2020, the city furloughed all part-time unbenefited staff. So we had 205 employees that were furloughed. That's 37.2% of our staffing. So it was pretty significant. What happened is that through the time of staff being furloughed, and even prior to that, the city was calling on all city employees, variety of different levels, to support EOC and disaster service work. So through June 30th, 2020, the library department staff had supported almost 49,000 regular hours towards EOC and disaster service work, as well as 119 overtime hours. And so that's the about $879,000 that we had savings in our personal services because it was eligible for CARES Act funding. And so although we had 205 employees that were furloughed, we had a significant amount of employees contributing towards the pandemic and supporting a variety of different roles. And in the Emergency Operations Center, we had support in childcare, digital inclusion, documentation, local assistance, just general planning, public information officer support, as well as safety. For disaster service work support, we had staff supporting food delivery throughout the community, food distribution, housing support, and as well as school meal distribution and pickup. And so we had a variety of staff supporting not only the city's emergency operations center, but overall the city's pandemic and needs overall. So even though we had 205 employees furloughed, technically, what happened was that there were times where employees were working, times where maybe they weren't. So it really just depended on what the need was in the community week to week. And then next slide. We already reviewed the 2021 budget last year, in August. And so I just wanted to kind of go over it again. And so we have 375.47 FTE. And so this is the adopted budget. And so there is some minor adjustments that we're doing in terms of our capital budget from last year to this year to move some funds. It's called a rebudget of funds for projects that didn't occur. So our budget will change a little bit later in the year to account for those projects that didn't happen and trying to factor those projects into this year. But overall, the city has communicated that even though the expected sales tax was lower than anticipated, they received the expected sales tax revenue was due to be lower than what they actually received. They received 8 million more. And so when we think about this year's budget and we think about, next slide, please. We think about the discussion that we had in terms of budget reductions and all of that. The city has said they're pretty much at an even balance right now. And so they're looking towards next fiscal year's budget reductions and nothing happening further in this fiscal year at this point. So this was just kind of a discussion again about the city's overall balancing strategy and how it impacted the library. And so the library was able to recognize the savings from shelter in place and hiring freeze, and as well as halting non-essential capital projects, which is where we had our capital budget savings, as well as any non-essential expenditures. And then we did get that was our reduction target, which didn't actually get fully implemented. Next slide, please. And so the important thing to take away from the current budget situation is that we did have the reduction of 27.8 FTE, which results in 4 hours per week per location. And then Mount Pleasant would revert back to 24 hours a week staffing. And the package 2, which was called the city's contingency plan in the event that the city's budget and revenues didn't get better, was going to be revisited this fall. And so the city has said that that will not take place. They will not be moving forward with any department's package 2 plans. So the budget reduction here, where we had submitted for an additional 6 hours reduction per week and reducing 21.76 FTE, is not going to be moving forward this fall. But the budget office has communicated citywide that this upcoming budget cycle is definitely going to be challenging. And so we will begin planning for that, and you all will help us with that budget direction, budget memo, and the budget planning committee as well. And so just to kind of share in summary, we did have savings last year, of which resulted in some savings that will roll back in to the library parcel tax, some savings in the general fund that will contribute back to the citywide savings and support the whole city, and then our capital savings, which will rebudget and plan for completing those projects either this year or next year, or in the following years to come, depending on the need. And there's no package 2 in the fall, so that's great, but definitely challenging budget time ahead of us. So that's everything. Is there any questions?
All right, thank you. Hearing none, I think we're ready to move on to the COVID-19 update. Thank you.
And I think I would just give a little preface and say that I think last month you heard a really extensive update on all the work that the library had been doing over the closure period. And as a result of that conversation, I think we decided that we would give a more brief and a succinct update about just the most recent activities that have happened each month until it becomes no longer relevant. So we have our 2 deputies, I think tonight, Michelle Arnott and Jenny Choi, are going to provide us with an update.
Great.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Jenny. I think you remember me from several meetings here. We actually tried to make this a more succinct presentation. It's somehow more slides, but we will keep it shorter, I promise. So as you know, we are continuing to work during the COVID-19 service impacts and continuing working with the safety branch of the city's emergency operations center, and the library safety team has been working with the library managers and staff to provide the detailed, next slide, please. So in terms of the safety, we are continuing working with the city's emergency operations center, working with our staff to provide detailed protocols, training and information about, social distancing, hygiene requirements. We kind of went over these last time, so I won't bore everybody with these. But the implementation and adherence to these protocols are intended to keep our employees safe while we're able to have staff perform essential duties and continue library operations. A couple of things to note, during the past month, in addition to the global COVID-19 pandemic, we also had to respond accordingly to emergency issues such as air quality issues due to surrounding wildfires, preparation for potential rolling blackouts, and protest safety at our main library location, in addition to the global pandemic, all while trying to ensure that we can safely continue our services. Next slide. So the library's essential priorities continue to just guide the library's response and actions throughout these months. As the county's restrictions loosen, we look to expand modified services to meet the needs of our communities. Over the past 7 months, the work of our consistently flexible, responsive, and adaptive staff can be framed in these 4 areas: continuing to support public service, emergency operations, supporting families, and digital inclusion. And underlying each of these 4 areas, obviously, is safety, operations, and communications. So we will provide an overview of the impact that COVID-19 has had and how we have had to kind of pivot our services to implement safety, all while being responsive to the needs of the community. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle now.
Hey everybody, Michelle Arnott here. Just going to give you a brief overview of where we are with public services since we met last month. So I wanted to try to highlight just a couple of things that, that really caught my attention as I was pulling the data together for this report. Last August, we had library staff that continued to do rough chat and mail interactions and things like that. We still continue to provide that service this August, and the increase between just last August alone and this August was a 1,329% increase in staff engagement with the public, the community. And a large part of the increase for this is increased response to express pickup as we expand different locations. People have questions about their accounts, things like that. and it's oftentimes the one way people can connect. So the library staff is continuing to support this, also providing multiple language support for our RefChat mail interactions. And to date, since we closed, the staff have provided over 4,500 hours of support just for this service alone. I skipped ahead to that because that was what really got me today. For account services, please know that fines are still suspended. Expiration dates for library cards are still extended. The holds that we have that sort of figured out now. We actually increased the holds limit as well, so people can have 30 items on their account. They don't have to come to the library, as often. So hopefully it makes it a little bit more convenient for our customers. Still continuing to issue e-cards and adding additional e-titles, and also have a huge increase still. I'm seeing over 77% increase in e-checkouts as opposed to where we were last year in this sort of point in time. Next slide, please. We now have 21 locations up for express pickup. So I actually thought about only putting the 3 locations we weren't at yet on the slide, but it's great to see them all up. We brought on 2 more locations just 2 days ago, or rather yesterday. And so far, we've served over 55,000 patrons and over 200,000 items checked out. So we know this number is going to continue to grow, and staff at each one of the locations have been making improvements and changes to increase the efficiency of that service for our patrons. We expect to have the last 3 libraries, Calabasas, Seven Trees, and Almaden, up by the end of the month. Next slide, please. We're continuing to provide virtual programming, still in all for all ages, and the attendance is still strong, and the staff are still planning their programs, providing the virtual programs, and then things that they had thought about with regard to what would be traditional programs, especially for the fall and the incoming months. They're now still pivoting to provide on a virtual platform. So for example, our popular local lit program will be held online this year as well. And they're planning for that. Next slide, please. This slide is exactly the same as last month, but I just wanted to keep it here as a reminder of the breadth of the programming that our public services staff is doing. And I think when we do these updates monthly, I'm going to try to highlight a few things from each of the areas that we're working in, so you can get an idea of what's happening. Next slide, please. So we had our graphic novel making contest award ceremony for the first time virtually in August. And it was fantastic because we had almost 200 households participate in the virtual ceremony, which Jill emceed. And even though we weren't together in a room, what was fantastic about this ceremony was that you were able to see on the screen the artwork up close and personal. So I thought that was one of the good benefits to having to adapt to this virtual model. We had a lot of involvement and a lot of participation over the summer with the programs that go along with the graphic novel making contest. We had over 900 attendees, 38 programs, and we still had 173 submissions, which is a really robust offering for this having to been pivoted to the virtual model. Adult programs are continuing to really expand into multiple languages with conversation cafes. We have English language learner programs that are offered multiple times a week. In partnership with SJSU, there's a veterans writing program that is really gaining some traction. And SJPL Works is expanding their offerings for virtual format. A lot of focus on business entrepreneurship, and also SJPL Works is doing a weekly program series for resume, cover letters, resume writing, and then also learning how to network, and that includes learning platforms like LinkedIn. Next slide. So a couple of the upcoming programs that are happening for Hispanic Heritage Month. There are going to be weekly Spanish language story times, going to do a family paint night virtually with Hispanic artists, and then also in partnership with the Gian Museum, going to be presentation discussion on a Frida Kahlo exhibit. Census, the team is still working on trying to get all of our patrons in our communities counted. And this comes in many different ways, including census story time. And that will go through the end of the month. If the census is going to be prolonged and last longer, then staff will still continue to support those efforts. Also, We Share Stories has been really popular in person, and now it's available on Civic Center TV. It'll be 4 times a week, and there'll be new episodes that are airing every Wednesday. Next slide. Digital inclusion is one of our pillars, of course, that we work in. And as I mentioned last month, we've been working on hotspot lending for students, and over 8,000 hotspots have been checked out to students so far. And to meet the existing need, an additional 4,500 hotspots are also going to be available for students and will be in place and in their hands by the end of the month. There are also hotspots that will be circulating for city programs and for regular library use. And this team is working on that right now. In the interim, because we know that there are many students that still don't have access to connectivity, the team has come up with a referral program and a process in order to be a stopgap measure until those other devices come, so that students still have a way to connect. So that program is going on right now. The rollout for city, for regular checkout at our express library locations is going to begin next week. And then additionally, just a reminder, because there's been a lot of talk about access and connectivity, the plan for expanding Wi-Fi services at 9 of our locations outside is still on track and slated to be completed by the end of 2020. Next slide, please. Also, we are continuing to work with PRNS and school districts to provide safe solutions for children to learn and to complete their distance learning during school time. There have been a few different sites that have started so far. And the idea is that each location would be able to host a stable cohort of 12 students for 3-week sessions. And the way we have it set up now throughout the city is that we'd be able to support 46 student cohorts to serve over 550 students at 19 different locations. Some of those locations include library locations, and we have Hillview Branch Library that started on this last Monday on the 14th, and then Alum Rock Branch will be next week, and Mount Pleasant Neighborhood Library also. Not all the sites are filled at PRNS sites either, and so I'm working with the different school districts, Lauren Hancock and Expanded Learning team, working on getting those placements and figuring those pieces out. It's important to remember that the students are going to be referred to the city by school and school districts. So as we work in partnership with them, then hopefully we'll see the capacity grow and that student need met. Next slide, please. And now I'm gonna turn back to Jenny.
So the city of San Jose is actually in partnership with First 5 Santa Clara County and Santa Clara County Office of Ed, and looking to offer those facing negative financial impacts funding to support families and childcare home providers in San Jose, $1 million to support subsidies and a year's worth of childcare for families, $3.5 million to award 395 family childcare providers with a $10,000 award. So this is being coordinated through our early education team for these scholarships. Next slide, please.
Can I ask a question about that?
Actually, can I do one thing too? Sorry, just one correction, just because it's hot off the presses. I'm so sorry. The 3.5 million is actually going to hit 495, not 395. So we're going to hit almost 500 family childcare home providers with that 3.5 million.
Great.
So that's just one little, it was hot off the press today, as you probably well know.
Awesome. We'll update that.
Thanks. Go ahead. Sorry, Kristen.
Oh, yeah, no, I just want to, so this is for the people actually providing childcare, not for the people who need it, correct?
It's actually both. Sorry, Jenny, do you want to answer or do you want me?
No, go ahead, Wendy. You're probably more well-versed in it than I am anyway.
Yeah, no worries. This is would have been in my announcement anyway, to thank the city and thank Jill for her leadership and for her doggedness and Araceli for her strength and persistence around this work with First Five and County Office of Ed. But so what this is for, part of it is for saving childcare. As like we have to hold open family childcare homes in particular, in this case, just like a bailout for the car industry. If they don't stay open, no matter what, there won't be childcare when we go back to work fully. So the $10,000 award is for the providers to back pay or anything they missed payments on for the past 6 months. They've been closed for part of it. They've been restricted for part of it, and they've had incredibly low enrollment for the rest of it. So the 10,000 is for them. The 1 million in subsidies is for about 35 to 40 children for 1 year in family childcare homes. These ones that we're giving the stipends to, the 10,000 award to, so that for families that are kind of in the gap, they don't qualify for a subsidy, but they can't afford childcare. It costs full cost tuition right now. So that we're intending to work it out so that one of the qualifiers is they'll be placed in one of the 500 almost family childcare providers. I'd be negligent if I didn't say this was in partnership with a county who also put in about 2.5 million. So we're at 7 million for this project in a county city collaborative, and this within the city, the library and the Parks and Recs, the library really fighting like dogs to get this, and I just can't thank everybody enough.
Okay, so thank you. That sounds amazing. I asked just because, you know, I teach in the Santa Clara County Office of Education, and I know of multiple families that are really struggling. Either one or both of them are out of work, and as soon as the schools start back up again, you know, they're gonna have to figure out how to do childcare for the ones they have to go back to work, who are left behind, right? So is this something that they can apply for? Have the families already been selected? Like, what is the process?
So just a quickie, not to take too much time. Remember, this is for 35 to 40 families, Kristen, of 140,000 children. Like, this is a very small program, but we intend to prove the point that there's going to be a need. We will, First Five is taking the lead on an application process for the families and the application process for the family childcare home providers both. We intend to do the families quickly. We're closing out all the contracts right now, and we have to spend the 3.5 million before December. And so we have to get it out the door. And so we're ready to go. We'll come to you to push it out to your families. But again, only 35 to 40 will be selected, but we want to know all the rest of them. We want them all to come. So we can
so refer them to First Five then.
Yes, I promise you, I'm going to send you all the literature of where they
go. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, Jenny.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. From our understanding, it's still a little bit of a work in progress. So thanks for the updates. We really appreciate it. So next slide, please. So as Andrea mentioned in her presentation about the budget, we do have continued support for our emergency operations, including liaison units for the schools and community engagement. We have folks on the action planning EOC, the planning and documentation. We have staff on the city's reopening task force, and they kind of review all of these modified services that we're looking to reopen. As mentioned before, public information, helping with translations, safety, childcare, and then our fabulous digital inclusion branch of the EOC, which has been handling a lot of the SJ Access work. Next slide. So you may be aware that the city, as of last week, moved into stage 7 of the COVID response, pandemic response, and that we're still kind of determining what this means for the library in terms of what we can do to expand our services. But here's kind of what we have on deck in terms of our expansion plans. As Michelle mentioned, we are looking to expand express pickup to the last remaining 3 branches. We are looking to plan for some maker spaceship outreach, student support through the Rock and Learn learning pods, SJ Access. We're going to be continuing with the hotspots and device lending, and then continuing to work with the EOC safety branch and service expansion task force to plan for other modified services as the restrictions loosen. Next slide, please. That concludes our update. Please feel free to let us know if you have any questions.
So any questions from the 4 public folks and or our commissioners?
We do have a hand raised with Commissioner Manjana.
Magana.
Magana. Sorry, I'll get it right.
That's okay, you'll get it. Jose.
Thank you. So first, thank you for expanding just the general services of the Wi-Fi devices. I know at least in San Jose Unified, we ran into situations where families were like, no, we're good. We have our Wi-Fi. And then they actually show up and say, hey, we actually need that support. So thank you so much for partnering with our district and other districts in the community to ensure that our families have the needed devices. And also thank you for the is it ROCKS, the Learning Pod program as well. I know through my work at City Year, we're doing learning pods as well. And I've even heard specifically from the principals that we're working with that they're sending students there. So thank you for that. It's helping us at City Year manage the number of students in our learning pods as well. So thank you. I'm just curious, when it comes to other partnerships with school, specifically school districts, are we doing any type of education support to ensure that teachers or just districts know what resources are out there for families to connect them to things like, I know for me, I check out digital books. I'm actually reading one right now that from our library system, but do we do anything of that sort with school districts or teachers?
That's a great question. We have a team of librarians that are doing office hour visits and doing actual virtual like class visits, and they're able to join Zoom meetings with the students and with the kids, with the teachers. So that's one of the things that we're working on. That's all done through expanded learning, through our education division and innovation unit. The other thing that we're still doing is the student library cards, is still reaching out for that. And then also we have a partnership with some of the schools that have a certain lending system that we can actually pair and expand their digital offerings by having access to ours. So that's still going on. And as the students and the schools get more into their learning in the school day, then we'll be still doing more student outreach and more school visits and virtual visits there.
Awesome. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have a quick question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I saw in the presentation that it mentions that there's going to be an expansion to 9 branches as well for the same the wireless service, but it doesn't mention which ones. Do you guys know?
We can get that to you, Commissioner.
I was just curious. I know in our district too, we were affected by it, and I really appreciate everything the library is doing with Overfelt High School. That is a community that really needed the wireless service that came out, and so I'm just curious of where else in the city it's going to be coming. Thank you.
I just want to. So sorry, Michelle. I just want to clarify quickly. We are expanding digital or Wi-Fi access to our parking lots at those 9 branches. So certainly complementary, but separate and apart from attendance area Wi-Fi through the East Side Access Project. And I do have the list of libraries in front of me for another presentation, so I'm happy to share it. We are planning to expand build a separate outdoor Wi-Fi network in the parking lots of the Educational Park branch in Council District 4, Biblioteca Latinoamericana in District 3, the Alum Rock branch in District 5, Bascom Library and Community Center in District 6, Hillview branch also in District 5, Evergreen branch in District 8, Joyce Ellington in District 3, East San Jose Carnegie in District 3, and El Viso branch in District 4. And these branches were selected looking at census data based on where connectivity needs were the greatest, where folks reported that they didn't have connectivity or a device at home.
So no District 2?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No District 2 yet. So it's not a no, but we had to prioritize based on the financial resources we had through the CARES Fund. And so we were able to put together enough of a project for 9 branches. And if funds in future budget years become available, then we'll continue to work our way through the list.
Any other comments, questions? Great. Again, I just want to say thank you for all your work for flipping like everyone in the experience we're in and serving our public. I would be remiss to say this one thing. I know I always talk about childcare. I'm sorry, but it's just going to be something you're going to roll your eyes and I'll be good with it. Just so that people know the context of the money. LA County is giving $40,000 to providers to save their business, where we're giving 10. I mean, that's the crisis we're in. I just wanted to give you some scope to that. But again, thank you very, very much for this presentation. It's amazing. Should we move on to equity, diversity, and inclusion? The presentation around our efforts in those areas?
Sure. So I'll give a little bit of an introduction if that's okay. I'm so excited to be able to bring this report to you all today. And I'll give you a little bit of our background. As you guys know, the public library has always been completely committed to the core values of equity, diversity, and inclusion. As the commission knows, the library has made significant progress in the past few years in advancing these values through our education services specifically. So while we were, that work was so important, and we were able to increase our capacity to do that work, we've also been painfully aware that we had not had the capacity to address the service needs of other populations. And we've discussed this with the commission before, such as targeted services to seniors, to parents of children who were trying to reach through our education work, residents with learning or ability differences, and all sorts of residents who may experience other barriers to resources. And so I was very gratified earlier this year, I guess it was late in 2019, to be able to create our first staff position that is committed to equity and inclusion work. And we were so fortunate to bring on an incredible manager, Carla Alvarez, who you're going to meet tonight, who came in February of 2020. And then in March of 2020 became a critical part of the work that you've been hearing about in terms of our COVID response, especially in the digital inclusion work that we've been doing. So she's a key part of that team. But I'm also really glad to introduce her to you in her sort of formal role as our manager of equity inclusion services. So Carla is going to present to you today, and I think she's here. Take it away, Carla.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Jill, for that introduction. And it's my pleasure to join everyone here tonight. As Jill said, my name is Carla Alvarez, and I was very happy to be able to join the library team in February of this year, which seems in many ways an eternity ago, and also just like it was yesterday at the same time. To give a little bit of background on myself, I actually have come from more than a decade of leading social justice and development initiatives, specializing on youth engagement, gender mainstreaming, immigrant justice, and peace building, or also known as conflict transformation. And I've worked and led projects from international to international scale, and in the United States, Mexico, and internationally. And it's been very enriching and rewarding to be able to now work for social change as a public servant and deepen our engagement with the community at the library. Next. As Jill was reflecting, yes, I think we are all here because we know how critical the role of our public libraries are and essential in communities for safe, accessible, and no-cost knowledge resources for everyone. And in particular, it's not simply a matter of providing the access, but ensuring equitable access of these resources. What does this mean? It means equitable access in terms of ensuring that residents with higher or deeper needs, regardless of their economic status, are provided with both resources and support, including through educational and professional tools and other training opportunities. San Jose, we all know, is a vibrant and diverse community with a range of languages, races, ethnicities, and experiences to draw from. And that should be represented in the materials, programs, and services we offer. And in many ways, we already have developed a pretty good collection and catalog materials available for the community that is representative of these voices and these experiences. And making our spaces inclusive also means working really hard at recognizing the potential barriers or deterrents that may prevent the community from participating in our or accessing our services. As has been shared in previous meetings, the library developed the education and digital literacy strategy. And this strategy ensures that the library is focused and accountable in its mission to serve the full breadth and depth of the richly diverse San Jose community. One of the ways in which the library has already been doing and advancing this work was through the development of the Equity Index, which is used to identify a range of needs across the city and integrate resources and services into library planning. So the data points that are included in this index are inclusive of average monthly patron visits, age range, access to technology, Wi-Fi computer stations, and transportation routes, as well as average household income, educational attainment levels, and homelessness. And this has been a critical tool to understand how to direct limited resources and services, especially in the context that we find ourselves in today. Next. By partnering with trusted community-based organizations like the library has done for so long, and to name a few of the many organizations include Sacred Heart Community Services, People Assisting the Homeless, the Pro Bono Project through Lawyers in the Library. The library provides a robust range of programming and services to educate, inform, and connect community members to important resources and tools. And the Family Learning Center Coordinators, which is a network of 7 branches that includes specialized centers, are an incredible asset for the library. They serve as community navigators who focus on outreach and engagement precisely for historically underserved community members. The images that you see on this slide include at the top right, a recent program co-hosted with the Alum Rock Counseling Center, for example, providing some information on mental health and self-care tips that during the pandemic and coping strategies. And the image right below is a story time one of the FLC coordinators used when pre-COVID, when he would host story times at the local Starbucks Springs. So that's an example of working with a local business in the community. And the library staff to date continue to work with community partners to include events and programs that support the community and staying connected to important information about public services and now e-learning opportunities. Next. COVID-19 meant a lot of transitions and adaptations, and to offset the short and medium term detrimental impact of physical closures and social distancing guidelines resulting from COVID-19, the library invested in transitioning the in-person programs and services to virtual platforms with an equity lens. And so as you'll see in this slide, here are a few ways in which we've done precisely that. So incorporating multilingual access in the top 4 most spoken languages here in San Jose, English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Mandarin, including phone service, recognizing that not everyone is very comfortable or knowledgeable about virtual spaces of engagement. So including phone service and access, and that would include express pickup opportunities to receive that support, including from, whereas many people might have been using RefChat, for example, being able to speak with suggestions with someone over the phone. We've also identified over the course of the summer how to provide virtual sign language interpretation when requested for programming, which is great and another way in which we are being inclusive. multimodal programming through whether it's live webinar, telephone tales, which is a call-in storytelling program for preschoolers that now has 24/7 access to stories, songs, and rhymes in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese, as well as recorded videos for self-paced learning available in a series of YouTube playlists. So if you haven't seen our YouTube playlist, I invite you to check it out. SJPO Works, as we heard, also really focusing on supporting job searchers and providing professional development, which is all the more needed right now. And expanded learning, increasing the digital resources and launching of our virtual programming further supports San Jose students for their continued learning success. And also providing building blocks to support patrons in transitioning in this virtual dimension. And so our staff created multiple how-to videos in many languages, showing people how to obtain an eLibrary card, how to navigate the website and access the many library e-resources available. Next. Digital connectivity, meaning the access to a fast and reliable internet connection and adequate computing devices, is an essential service for residents in San Jose, more so during the current context. And the SJ Access initiative prioritizes digital inclusion. The suspension of in-person library access has resulted in a loss of this access for so many people, particularly for community members in nearby ranches serving disconnected households in neighborhoods with some of the highest poverty rates. And so the SJ Access looks at the 3 A's, which you can see in this slide. So access, looking at device circulation, either through a hotspot, a computing device, or a combination, and also enhancing our Wi-Fi available throughout through our branches. Affordability, providing information about affordable internet plans to try to create a longer term option for connectivity for our community members. And adoption, and really making sure that our members understand how to harness the power of technology, and looking at providing digital literacy classes and ongoing tech support. In particular, in inclusion, this has been a key part of the work that we've been doing as part of the EOC branch. And in light of the widening digital divide during the pandemic, the library developed a digital equity index, which prioritizes efforts with the following factors: K through 12 student density, lower socioeconomic indicators, and a lack of digital connectivity. A critical aspect of the strategy underpinning SJ Access is precisely that second term, access. There will be general circulation, but also priority access for the most vulnerable members. We'll be connecting back to those trusted voices and organizations in the community to reach those community members who we understand it may take some more time to reach, to understand and help them understand what access to these tools may offer for them and their families and their homes, and engage in the services and programming that have transitioned virtually. Next. And here's an overview. We've seen it already presented previously of some of the devices that we currently have available, both through hotspot and computing, but also skills building. And it is our hope that the breadth of digital tools and resources that are being rolled out creates a cycle of impact in which individuals are equipped with the knowledge and skills to adapt to this virtual transition, and entire families and households are better able to participate in services and advocate for their own needs. Next. As we expand these offerings, it will be important to understand, to the extent possible, who is being served by this service, how these tools are being used. We will be incorporating an optional anonymous survey to try to collect some of this information. As always, the library is deeply committed to privacy and confidentiality, but trying to understand where the devices are going, who is using them, and what purposes they're being used for. Click. As well, we'll be working with the partnering nonprofits who will be valuable in this effort, especially for community members who may not want to disclose information directly with us. And we're also planning some town halls next month to hear from the community directly. Click. Ultimately, a year from now, we hope this combination of efforts deepens our understanding of the impact of what this investment meant at a community and household level. Next. The policies that guide institutions are a critical part of the infrastructure that's necessary to foster a culture of equity and inclusion in any workplace. The education policy explicitly denotes that programming and policy planning be intentionally inclusive in its design, outreach, implementation, and refining it constantly. And so the following policies provide the EDA framework that the library already holds. The Juvenile Fine Free program removes a significant barrier to access and yielded the possibility of providing student library cards, which has now been pivotal in catalyzing a much deeper school library collaboration now that to support distance learning. Volunteering and suspended fines destigmatizes economic vulnerability, especially given the drastic changes in livelihoods faced by so many currently. And adaptive equipment that is responsive to ADA needs and special needs provides the protocol and training investment to enhance service and ultimately broaden inclusion. Next. Prior to me joining the team and having the opportunity to have a staff position included in formally as part of the library, the staff were already well underway in advancing EDI through various working groups. And as you'll see in this slide, we have the Disability Access Committee, which focuses on equitable disability access to services, resources, technology, and staff guidelines. There's the Insiders Committee, programming for teens and adults with intellectual and learning disabilities at various branches. There's the Racial Equity Team, focused on sharing information, deepening conversations, and increasing racial equity in library service delivery. And the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, GARE. The library and many members of the library staff participate in local and national meetings regarding public service agents that are working towards advancing racial equity in different departments. And Danica, if you can click 4 times. And now with the, one more time. And with the incorporation of my position, I am part of all of these groups. I spend time attending all of the meetings and supporting the development of their work plans, establishing priorities, and making recommendations of policies to present to library leadership and weaving these efforts together. Next. For the coming months, we have quite a few projects that that will be moving and moving forward. So one is to identify quality standards that we will be able to integrate into the education and digital literacy strategy. We'll also be working on an EDI progress matrix to establish benchmarks to successfully embed EDI into programs, operations, and services at the library. We'll continue working with the EDI working groups and develop streamlined goals and work plans. And we'll also be working on continuing to expand a shared internal resource page that will include things like a glossary of terms, trainings, procedures, and protocols. We're also really looking forward to the incorporation of a VISTA fellow who will support with research, data gathering and analysis, stakeholder mapping, and identifying best practices from other cities and public libraries that are already leading EDI efforts that we can integrate. Next. I leave with this quote from Kimberly Crenshaw, who is the renowned lawyer, scholar, and leading authority in the area of civil rights and Black feminist legal theory, who coined the terms intersectionality and critical race theory. Treating different things the same way may generate as much inequality as treating the same things in different ways. So this captures why it's so important to focus on equity and not just equality. There is so much richness in San Jose in language, races, ethnicities, and experiences. This work about EDI is precisely to recognize, accept, understand the differences in our community, invest the time and resources needed to provide the support and assistance for different needs to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to thrive. Next. Thank you. And happy Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month. In particular, for me, my family is celebrating Mexico's Independence Day today. And I am happy to take questions.
Thank you, Carla. And I think before we turn it back to the commission, I just wanted to say again how fortunate we feel to have Carla on board, and how, you know, this is really a pivotal early point in our development of the library's work plan in these important areas. And so we're really hoping to have a lot of questions from the commission. We really want to hear from you what your thoughts are and how to shape this work going forward. And so this is a great opportunity to really engage. I think, you know, I think you've heard that from Carla, and I think recognize how great she is to have on the team, but also we're all here to sort of hear from you and, you know, use your guidance to shape how we move forward with this. So turning it over to you, commissioners.
Commissioner Rivers, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I mean, welcome, and this is great. I think these are certainly questions we've been asking. You know, I don't know, as long as I've been on the commission, I know this type of thing comes up all the time, which is phenomenal. So I'm really delighted that you've joined the library. Thank you and welcome. I would be really interested to hear what the criteria was that were used to determine where the Wi-Fi goes into the parking lots, because I just can't, I find it difficult to believe that Evergreen needs it more than the southeast side where I live, District 2. So I don't know. I mean, I would just be really interested to see, you know, and you know, for you to potentially look at it from, you know, from an equity lens, you know, where it belongs. The other thing I was thinking of just right away is you were talking about the combination of computers and hotspots being passed out, and that's phenomenal as well. And actually, maybe outside of the meeting, I'd like to ask about that. I work for alternative education, so for kids who've been expelled from their school districts through the Santa Clara County Office of Education, and we do have Chromebooks and a few hotspots that we can hand out to our kids, but we also have a program for adults who are on probation or have been released from prison and want to get their diploma. And the problem with that, since we went on COVID, is they don't have Chromebooks or hotspots and no way to connect. And there's no physical place that they can go to connect anymore as well. And so I would really love to connect you with the teacher that's in charge of that program, because that could be phenomenal. And in terms of equity, you know, I feel like my entire job is about disrupting the school to prison pipeline. And this is just, you know, another great way of doing that. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Mahaney Guru. Again, I also am so excited that you're here. What a talent, what a time, and it's just perfect. So I'm really looking forward to the work around the quality standards and equity. That was a big lift, and it was such a robust, the commission did such a robust work around it that I know it needs more. And so I can't wait to see what engagement around that we're talking about. And then how do you take program to practice to policy? and how can we use those platforms and those things in real, the programs we build, to bring it to policy. And so the quality standards is certainly one of them when we're talking about childcare and early learning and education and after school programs. The second thing I think would be really interesting, I was listening today, I'm on a group for schooling services, and they were talking about childcare and that children are in childcare going to school. And this leads to an interest, and we know we have learning pods and we have family childcare homes. We have some center-based doing that, and some community-based programs. We have our Parks and Recs with 5, we have our library. And here's some issues that I heard, that children with IEPs are being turned away because they can't either accommodate, they can't manage the group size. And so it's such a big concern if the places and spaces where children with IEPs can't go anywhere, then they're not being educated, and it's certainly not being educated on par with what's required and what they are afforded by ADA and all of our other things. So I'm wondering where we are and how we can help. What's the space for that, and how can the library step into that as well? So from an inclusion standpoint, and it also then leads to inequities, because the children with IEPs who come from families who may not have full resources at their hands to take on the fight are the ones that are going to lose. And so I'm really excited to see what we could do and how we could support folks in that particular way. So having you as a resource and a sounding board and a face and a voice, great. Thank you so much.
I look forward to it. Yes. And also slowly learning more and more about the different areas before everything got disrupted during the pandemic.
Other commissioners or other any community members? Well, I expect we're going to have a lot more as we get to know each other and get in relationship, because this is a huge body of work. It's so much that it's like, where do we even begin? But we know we're going to begin with you. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to mention that when we, Carla led a small group that had already been starting to work on some of these areas, and we held an all-staff town hall virtually to introduce some of the work. And what I was very gratified by is that after that meeting, I think the size of your group, Carla, grew by double, right? Didn't it? At least, like, there were so many staff that wanted to join in and be part of this work. So that's kind of what the library is all about.
Wonderful.
Before we move along, Commissioner Thorson, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say welcome, Carla, and thank you so much for all of your work, and to the library for doing, making all of this effort as well. And wanted to share that recently I had done the pickup service, and you can choose a bundle of books that aren't cataloged. So all I supplied was my daughter's age, and I got 15 new picture books that represented a huge range of diversity and inclusion. So I thought that was really great. I didn't even have to ask for that. That was just provided. So that was really wonderful. And I also was wondering if there's any public-facing documentation about the work you're doing that's available through the library's website or elsewhere, just because sometimes when I attend events and things that I get questions about kind of the equity process and how it's determined that certain branches have a service rolled out at a certain time, that sort of thing. So it'd be great to have something to point to that has some of that information.
Yeah, that was one of the materials that I've also identified as wanting to include, and actually creating labels for blog posts that would also highlight EDI, the EDI focus, but definitely not only internally sharing and reflecting on what EDI means and how to embed that, but also how to present that and amplify this work in the community publicly.
That's great. Thank you. Others? Are there others that I didn't see, Danica?
At this time, I see no additional hands raised, so we are in the clear to move on to discussion item D, which is going to be the appointment of the ad hoc.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Carla. So as we move on to the final discussion item, this is the action item around identifying an ad hoc committee to review the bond and audit. Most of us who've been here for a while know, but some of us are new, that we do this, that we need to appoint an ad hoc committee that will develop questions regarding the library bond projects and audit questions as required. The committee has to be comprised of not to exceed 5 members. 6 members, it looks like, constitutes a quorum. And so the struggle I have for all of those in the know is we have 8 of 11 present here. And if we're trying to not exceed 5, what's the minimum?
Chair Mahaney Guruhu, that actually was a mistype on my part. A quorum of the entire commission, of course, is 8.
Right.
And ad hoc, we would not want to meet that number. We would want one less, because then the ad hoc would be consisting a quorum of the commission as a whole, which is not what we want. But again, 5 is a mistype on my part. Quorum would be 8, so we would be looking for, at the most 7.
At the most 7. Is there a...
In the past, we've had, I think, 2 or 3 can even constitute an ad hoc.
Correct.
And I believe that we added this item a few years ago because one of the roles the commission plays is as the bond and library parcel tax oversight bodies. Once a year, they get an audit, and it did feel kind of like out of the blue that you sort of convene as this body once a year and don't talk about it the rest of the year. So we convened an ad hoc that allows members of the committee the commission who are really interested in this work, who maybe have an eye more towards some of the details around how expenditures are made and how the audits are conducted by our city auditors and their consultants, and allow them to help the commission formulate questions that make that meeting more substantive and meaningful, I think, at the time. So if you're that kind of commissioner and you're really interested, please join in. I don't believe it's a tremendous amount of work.
I do want to just make one note that we've quorum. Commissioner Melillo has left, and so we've lost our quorum, but I do believe that it should be sufficient that we not take action on this item, but that if you are interested in volunteering, there will be no official action from the commission to form the committee, but we can take a list of volunteers and move forward. The action isn't critical.
Correct.
Great. So that being said, are there folks that are interested in volunteering to join for consideration to join the ad hoc committee? Commissioner Trudeau, I see you without a mute. I wonder if that means you're...
Yeah, I was about ready to raise my hand, but I can't figure out how to raise my hand.
You don't have to. Your mute is off, and that was a good sign.
Okay. So putting it on mute is obviously not raising my hand. So I'm off mute, I'm raising my hand. I believe I did this with Hillary last time. Didn't we work on the committee together?
We did the budget letter.
Oh, that's what it was.
So yeah, so that was back in January.
Well, I don't know what's involved, but I'm still fairly new to the committee, so I'd like to get involved at some extent. I'll be glad to listen and give my opinion, but I don't know. I don't think I feel competent to lead it or to push things forward or whatever, but I'll be willing to assist any way I can.
Thank you. And I think that group, or Jill, that reviews and comes up with questions that they want to propose, right? That's the majority of the work.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think you're perfectly suited for that. And so I think we'll take your name.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there others that are, we could just volunteer the folks that are not here. No, I guess we're not allowed to do that, are we?
I would recommend against that because we love the idea of it, but it might not work out so well.
All right, fine.
So, Wendy, if if it's, I did the budget one, not last time, but the time before when we got the fine. So I'm happy to participate this if you're unable to find other people. But if you are able to find people who are enthusiastic and excited about this, I will happily step down as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Rivers. We have 2. And Jill, would we ask it again at the next commission to see if we could grab some more?
I think, yeah, we have time to do that if you'd like.
I think so. We have 2, at least in the volunteer. We can't take an action.
Commissioner Magana.
Commissioner Magana.
I'm also happy to throw my name into the ad hoc committee as well.
Thank you, sir.
Great.
All right. Anyone else going once? Going twice? 3 times sold. We have 3 for 3. All right. No action. So we will move on. We are now on council liaison. I have nothing to report. I think, no, wait, sorry. That's not me. Council liaison. Is anyone here from Councilmember Arenas' office?
Actually, can I ask a quick question before we move on? Since we can't take action, does that mean that the 3 people on the ad hoc cannot start reviewing, or can we start the work, or do we have to wait a month?
Jill, I defer.
I was going to ask Anne if she knows from the process standpoint.
From a process standpoint, we always like to have a vote of the commission, but it's not necessary. The 3 of you have volunteered, and so the work can begin of coming up with questions and reviewing questions that have been asked in the past. So there should not be any delay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Will we have examples of past ad hoc committee minutes, results, or whatever? Or are we going into this cold or what?
Yeah, no, so typically, yeah, I was going to say that I think Jenny and probably Andrea will reach out to you. And it's a couple of things. One is to kind of, because part of it is the usage of our parcel tax. And so giving you enough context of the usage of the parcel tax so that you can formulate questions. And the other is the bond, which not that much was done this year, but making sure that you have enough background in order to formulate the questions that you want to raise. So you should hear from them within the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic.
Great.
Thank you.
Right. I see Monica is here. Hi, Monica. Welcome.
Hi there. Good evening.
We'd love to hear from what the goings on with Councilwoman Arenas.
Sure. Well, I just had a short message on behalf of Councilmember Arenas. I wanted to share her thanks and appreciation for all of the work that the library has done to get the city childcare program up and running. We have a number of families from our Title I schools that have signed up for the program and are really excited about being able to join without any fees for this next session. I was actually going back and forth with a parent during this meeting who reached out to me and wanting to get registered. And so we'll get them registered tomorrow, but the program is, of course, really important for our families. So families in need are able to have a safe space for their children while trying to get back to work. The council member, of course, welcomes any support that the committee can lend to keep the program free for the rest of the year. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We really do appreciate it. Next is slide 13, and it's the chair's announcement. I defer. My announcement was already taking up Jenny's time, so thank you. Then we have the director's report. Jill.
Okay, well, you already heard about all the great work that we've been doing at the library. I have a few updates. As As Michelle had said, we have been continually adding new express pickup sites. So we have just activated East San Jose Carnegie and Willow Glen branch. We now have a total of 21 sites. Since our launch, we've served over 55,000 library members who've checked out more than 214,000 library items. Amazing. We're also been recruiting new AmeriCorps Vistas for a number of roles. And so we are looking for 3 community-minded adults to serve full-time for a calendar year to build library program capacity. And so if you can help us spread the word about this opportunity to your own networks, the applications close on September 25th. So for more information about the VISTA requirements, benefits, and how to apply, please visit our sjpl.org / I think, volunteer. I always get confused between / and /.
I do. Well.
Right? Anyway. Also, we have been celebrating, or we're celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th. So our early education department is celebrating the cultures and contributions of generations of Hispanic Americans in the United States. So during this month, the early education Facebook page is your best source for Spanish language story times every week, inviting families to celebrate the joy and beauty that diversity brings to our communities. Let's see. I think I had one. I think that's all. So I just wanted to say that it's great to meet again with Commission, and we look forward to having Danica on board to keep us in line. And welcome, Danica.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
All right.
I think we're just moving right along. We're moving around to comments and announcement. I don't know if we have any youth commissioner here present. I think not. No. Okay. And meetings attended by commissioners as commissioners, or any commissioners would like to report out?
Hi, so I did attend a meeting with Commissioner Trudeau. We attended the Friends group meeting on the 29th of last month. And it was really interesting to meet with everybody. They're very eager to get started, to begin their volunteer work and supporting the library with the book sales. We did have a few questions that came up, and I just wanted to share those concerns with you all. Some of the concerns that they have was to have when were they going to have access to their materials to actually begin the planning stage, right? Because they know, we're all aware that this is not going away soon. And so they're very eager to start their book sales, and so they just want to get a little bit more information as to when they can have access to their materials. And there was another issue with them having access to their mail as well, because it's delivered to the branches themselves. But they are so positive. They're so just full of energy and excited to get back to their volunteer work and supporting the community that way. But I did want to bring up those two concerns because I did mention that we were going to follow up in this meeting and see how we can
Yes, we're all
with more information regarding that.
I'll just chip in since you kicked the ball off. I didn't know. I didn't know that the Friends met the guidelines for being an outside organization. Yeah, yeah, definitely. We had a long discussion about people are anxious to start putting some money in the kitty with the book sales, and so I anticipate just my own gut feeling. Obviously, is we're not going to be able to have any book sales until COVID is, well, I don't know, behind us for sure. But you know, how are the questions were, how are books going to be? Just speaking from a kind of a parochial aspect, Almaden, we got all our books locked up inside the library in boxes, so we know they're in good condition and not contaminated, so to speak. So we're just kind of casting around for ideas when the time comes to how to organize something like that. Obviously, would probably be something outdoors and things of that sort. So we're just going to need, when the time comes, some kind of guidance on or we can have like a brainstorming session and talk to Jill or whoever about possible ideas when the time draws closer. As far as mail, that was somewhat of a limited thing too, because Almond and Friends, obviously we're co-located with the community center. Community center's locked, so we can't get our mail. So we had to work out a way to get our mail because it's delivered to the same address as the community center. So that was kind of I don't know if that was a one thing issue or not. So that's about it.
Vice Chair Magana, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Just to follow up on our conversation around the digital divide, in my role as trustee as well as library commissioner, I'm a founding member of a group called the Digital Equity Coalition of Santa Clara County. We've done a lot of advocacy work. I'm proud to have pushed our county supervisors as well as our city council to do a lot of this funding that's allowed us to have some of these devices and the expansion of Wi-Fi. But we're just getting started. And if folks are interested in addressing the digital divide even more, because we do appreciate the short-term approach that has been taken on, but we know that unless there's a long-term approach, we're going to have the same conversation in 6 months, in a year, later on down the road. So I was actually on a national panel with a city council member from Baltimore and a collective of folks from Chicago, I believe from Philadelphia as well, where we're pushing really for a national approach, and if not a national approach, a statewide approach to really head on the digital divide. This isn't just an issue that's impacting large cities like San Jose and Santa Clara County. It's impacting rural communities. It's impacting everyone. We're saying that in many cases our Wi-Fi is like water. It's needed. We'd like to see it as a public utility. So if folks are interested, the website for our coalition is digitalequityca.org. But feel free to reach out to me. We're going to start doing some organizing at the state level, and we're not just we're a group of school board members that started that are current educators or former educators, but we're not working on this alone. We were able to organize 30 school boards from across the county. We worked with Superintendent Dewan, Dr. Dewan from the county, and other community groups to really advocate and push this on. So if folks are interested in jumping on board, we're now going to be really pushing State Superintendent Tony Thurmond as well as the governor to really do something about this, because I personally, I'll speak from the I think it's unfair that our school districts and our libraries are having to take on the digital divide when this should be a right for all our students and for all our families.
Are we allowed to say hear, hear, clap, yay?
Absolutely.
Your leadership is spectacular on this, Jose.
Yeah, I wanted to address the conversation about the friends, just so that you know that our members of our management team have been meeting with the All Friends. And now that we have almost all of our sites open, I think it should be a lot easier to coordinate around getting mail. And we are absolutely ready to help with any kind of advice around book sales, because the one thing we have mastered is management of our collections during COVID. And then to your comments, Commissioner Magana, absolutely, the Digital Equity Coalition has been a great advisor for us as well during this time. And I think I just want to, I really appreciate your statement that it's not fair for libraries to have to fill the gap, but I think that we're always going to be part of that, the sort of environment or the ecosystem of digital equity, because even if you have a connection, you know, the capacity to be able to use the tools we're given is definitely something we want to help with. So make sure to keep us in your in the conversation, and definitely connect with Carla, because I know that's something that's high on her priority list as well.
Well, Jill, big picture wise, I know it's hard to say now, but do you foresee any book sales happening while COVID is still around?
You know, honestly, from an objective perspective, I don't see any reason why it couldn't be organized, because we understand the elements of social distancing. We understand how materials need to be managed. We would just need to ensure that there was appropriate staffing, you know, safety measures, that what we, you know, personal protective equipment, all the things that we're using with our staff. And what we have been hearing is that the friends, while some friends are really eager to get back into the saddle, others are more cautious, which is the same with all of our communities and our staff and everybody, that there's a mix of that concern and others who are really excited about moving forward. So I think that we could definitely start having that conversation and consider what a post-COVID book sale looks like. It might be something that's more spaced out. It might be something with fewer, with tables that are farther apart, fewer staff interactions,
Well, by
people wearing masks, certainly.
post-COVID, you're saying inoculations are available everywhere and we're not worried about
No, no. And then I'm not speaking to the medical aspects of it. I mean, post having to deal with COVID in our lives. So from now, from the pandemic on, we are definitely shaping how we provide services to ensure that there's going to be social distancing and the ability for people to keep their hands clean and to wear masks and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So I think that we could definitely implement a book sale of that nature if that's something that a friends group wanted to do. So we should start having that conversation.
Okay. Well, I'll get word out to all friends that the position is that I guess basically talk to all your groups and see what their consensus, what their feelings are. But
yeah, and if they're interested, we should start having that conversation, especially if the county keeps moving in the direction of being able to open more and more services. The next, if the city moves to the next phase, we could theoretically open potentially areas of our libraries in the buildings. So
Okay.
that's something that we're planning towards as well.
Okay, well, stay tuned then. I mean, we can do it. We could do it outside, of course, but
that's actually what I was picturing was outdoor book sales.
Yeah. Okay, outdoor book sales with face masks and the gloves as required or as however they want it, and basically personnel spacing is the main things.
Right.
Commissioner Rivers and then Commissioner Mendoza.
I want to just, speaking of the Friends committees, I was just presuming that they were not meeting because I haven't heard from my local one in a really long time. But is there a way to find out if my local one is, because I definitely want to, participate in it if it is happening.
Well,
Is
the
there a way to
next
find out?
one's going to be, the last one was a few weeks ago. It was done at Bascom. It was by FaceTime. So
But
was
it all Friends or just the one in your area?
That's all Friends, but we can connect you with your local one, I believe, right, Michelle, or one of our division managers?
Yes, we can do that.
Next one's going to be.
Yeah, no, I know it was Judy, but I don't think that they've met in a while, but I could be wrong. I may have just fallen off their list or something.
Yeah. The next one's going to be hosted by Almaden on Halloween, October 31st.
Okay.
So obviously the word will go out to all the Friends units as the time draws near.
Okay. Yeah. So is that an email list, or how do I get on that? I mean, I knew I was because I've been to the all Friends meetings before. I don't know how I fell off.
Well, there's
provide that list to all the commissioners.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I definitely want to participate in that, and just I stopped hearing about it. So thank you.
Great. Commissioner Mendoza, yeah.
Hi, well, I think you're correct, Commissioner Rivers. The individual libraries are not meeting right now. It was just the All Friends group. But I just wanted to thank you, Jill, for entertaining that idea of how it would even look like in the future. They did form, the All Friends group did form an ad hoc committee to specifically try to brainstorm what it would look like. And those were some of the things that they came up with, being outdoors, and all the safety measures, including having like one library per month and just focus all the efforts, all the volunteers in that book sale and kind of rotate around. So they are very, they're very active. They're ready to go. But that's good that you mentioned that. If I can make it for next month's meeting, I can touch base and just make sure that everybody's comfortable with that. All the libraries are comfortable, and all the members, all the volunteers are, so that we can all be on the same page. But I just wanted to confirm with Commissioner Rivers that my understanding is that the individual libraries are not meeting yet. It's just the All Friends that are meeting.
Yes.
Okay, good. So I've only missed the All Friends meetings, not all the meetings. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You're good. Yeah, you're good.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other, before we move on to see if we have any comments or announcements from the foundation? Okay. Do we have anything, Dawn, today?
I can speak as representative on the foundation board. This is Commissioner Thorson. So the foundation board has continued to meet virtually. The meetings have moved to quarterly to enable more subcommittee work. And so 3 subcommittees have been formed and have their charters approved, one for governance, communication, and grants. Some other news is that the foundation passed the audit with flying colors. They do a yearly audit. Next year, the focus of the board will be on strategic planning. And one of the some of the work that's been going on, especially over the summer with all of the budget for the city being up in the air, was that an advocacy ad hoc group was formed of foundation board members, and they worked to connect with council members and other government officials to continue to advocate for the library. And it was decided that this ad hoc group would continue for the foreseeable future, since, as was mentioned earlier, the budget will continue to be a challenge. So they will keep advocating for the library going forward. And so that's really great. Also, the foundation is in the process of hiring for a writer to help with all of their communication. So that position will hopefully be filled soon. There's also work going on this month to acknowledge donors to the Library Foundation who have been long-term donors, so donating for 5, 10, 15, and even 20 plus years. And so they'll be doing a mailing and phone call to make sure that those donors continue to be engaged with the library as things have moved to a more virtual environment. And the last thing, I don't think it's been formally announced, but the foundation continues to administer more and more grants, and a major tech company, they received a grant from a major tech company for programming and equipment and interns. So I'm sure once it's formally announced, we'll find out more about that. But just some really great work continuing as the pandemic goes on. So all behind the scenes for us, but everything continues to go with connecting with donors and other foundations and institutional support too.
Thank you, Commissioner Thorson. Anything else, Dawn, or that was great, Commissioner? All right, that's that then for comments and announcements. As our next item, of course, is we know information upcoming opportunities, and that's the link to the website for us to look at any program calendar information that we're interested in. I'd move to ask for items for the future commission meeting agendas. And if I might, I have one. I'm curious if we could have on the October 21st next commission meeting, a report on our work around voting centers, us being voting centers. That's my ask.
Yes, absolutely, Commissioner. And I'm just reminded that I actually had an update for you guys during my report, but we will save it for next month. but that's something that we're definitely working on.
Great. I'm so excited, Jill. I can barely stand it.
I know. I'm like, can we have it now? Do we have to wait?
Let me see. This is the problem with having too many documents. Hold on one second. You guys, so we have time, right? Let me see.
Yes, it looks like we're a little bit early, which is great. Don't get me wrong. While Jill's looking for that, are there other agenda items that other commissioners would propose we put on the future agendas? I'm not putting this on the agenda, but I think post census, when it's finished, I'd be interested in knowing what kind of data, what kind of information, our tremendous efforts around the census, and knowing that we have the pandemic in the middle of it. But I'm not proposing that at any specific time except after and when data and information is available.
Okay, I have it.
Yay.
Okay, so the update for this month is that for this year's general election, the library will again provide support for voting and voter engagement. 10 of our libraries will host voting centers. Their sites will be open 4 days of voting from October 31st through election day. And at the vote centers, residents can register to vote all the way through election day, as well as drop off or cast their ballot directly. 17 of our libraries will also provide outdoor ballot drop boxes, which will be available beginning September 28th. The library's Family Learning Centers and Teen HQ will be hosting virtual programming to boost voter engagement, and will provide access to multilingual voter education materials. And then finally, please watch out for our series of informative blog posts covering the history of voting and its importance in our democracy. Staff will do a full presentation in October.
Great.
Yay.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill.
Thanks to Michelle and Jean for all that information.
That is great. Okay, since there are no others, I just want to point out one correction on our agenda, that the next, our next virtual commission meeting will be October 21st. On our agenda, it says September 16th. It was just an error. So I just want to point that out, and we'll make the correction. Since we don't need to vote to adjourn, I say see you around, friends.
Very good point. I was about to ask if we wanted to make a vote to adjourn the meeting at 8:46 p.m., but we don't have to do that, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so like if you don't have a quorum and you need it to vote, do we like never get to adjourn? Is that what happens, right? We're stuck here forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Great update. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Danica. You did fantastic.
Yes, a few little typos, but that's okay. And then what I was trying to